And a good morning. It is the Chris Hand Show. It is not Chris Hand. My name is Matt Murphy, 906, and a happy Thursday to you, May 2nd, 2020. Is that right? Is it May 2nd already? 2024. It's our episode 565 of our time together on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Many of you might be confused as to why the heck Matt Murphy's here. His loudmouth is not supposed to be here until the afternoon hours. Well, Chris Hand and myself have switched. It's a midday mix-up on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, as Mr. Hand will probably let you know in the 12 o'clock hour. He had a duty to do with his youngsters early this morning, and he asked me if I would be willing to swap with him, and I said, of course, I'm willing to swap with you, Chris Hand. And so he'll be here at noon with the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Would love to hear from you throughout the course of the day, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. If you'd like to be a part of the show, that's the way to do so. You may do so on the Members Nutrition Super Text line, always up and running, and the telephone lines, when I'm in the chair, always up and running as well. Lots to get into, not the least of which the campus of UCLA was cleared overnight last night of some of the protesters and outside agitators with regard to their, you know what, frankly, it's not very clear what they want to accomplish or what they're trying to do. And I've been trying to get to the bottom of what they're trying to accomplish for the last week and a half. All I can get to is that they want universities to divest in investment in Israel. And I want to know what that means. And I can't figure it out. Now, protesters around the United States of America are expressing their opinions with regard to world affairs. And that's all well and good. That's a part of the fabric of the United States. Our ability to speak freely on these matters matters. Our ability to speak on these things matters. But it is a different occurrence what's happening in Columbia and some of the Ivy League schools and out at UCLA and some of the other campuses where not only are they attempting to express their opinion, they are attempting to prevent others from expressing their own. And that's the big difference that we need to understand. So we'll discuss that on the show today. But frankly, once again, I go back to what do they want? Now, the Free Palestine piece is one part of this. And I do believe that those who are not the useful idiots, when they suggest that they want to, quote unquote, free Palestine, what they're truly talking about is killing all the Jews. They want to eliminate the state of Israel. Well, where would the Jewish people go at that point? Well, they're not going to other Muslim-based countries. I promise you that. They're not going to have any of that. So we've discussed that on my portion of the broadcast day over the last several days. What does the phrase Free Palestine mean? But more specifically to the college campus protests. For example, the Vanderbilt protest that happened yesterday. And apparently this Vanderbilt protest has been going on for about a month now. There's been a small encampment of individuals in tents on the campus of Vanderbilt University, and they are protesting, well, something. The encampment has had an uninterrupted presence, according to the Tennessean, on the campus since the beginning of the demonstration in March. Has hosted events for non-camping students to get involved with, including a student walkout, 101 educational sessions on the movement, and kite painting in honor of those killed in Gaza. They're painting kites. Well, that'll solve. Well, hold on a second. I had no idea they were painting kites. Well, let's close things up.
This changes everything.
I mean, no question. I'll get down there jiffy quick. By the way, that's the voice of Belle K. You will not see Belle on the television side of things. Let me introduce the show properly, as we try to do during the noontime hour. There's Belle K behind the glass. Of course, Mr. Ken Weaver is behind his glass. He's in the news closet delivering headlines for you on the regular. And I appreciate the fact that Ken Weaver's back there. I don't get a chance to work with Ken Weaver.
Better be careful of those kites. You can put an eye out.
That's true. Well, hey, Ken Weaver, if I don't see you before, I'll meet you in the bathroom. That's a little callback. So call back to Nashville's Morning News there. There you go.
I'm never going to that bathroom again.
Weaver's going to go.
I'm going to start going downstairs.
He's going to go across the street to the Just Love coffee shop to go to the bathroom. There'll be Manda standing right beside him.
And there's a cement culvert.
There's plenty of places between here and there.
There's a big bush and a cement culvert.
There's a dumpster out there that's got your name written all over it.
And a Rottweiler.
So there's Ken, there's Belle K. Belle does not participate on the Super Talk television side of things. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and you're invited to come on over there. Powered by F&M Bank, and we appreciate all of those guys for everything that they do to bring you Super Talk television. Belle K does not appreciate it very much. Belle's in. For some reason, he decided to switch with me. It's almost like you like me.
No, it's not almost like you jackass it. It's like exactly like.
I mean, if I were Chris Hand, I would have a little bit of a complex about this.
You know what? I actually did it. I did a nice thing for Mac Morey. He didn't want to work a split, and I was like, hey, you know what? I'll help you out. I'll get to work with Matt. You get to sleep in and work straight through instead of having to leave and come back.
That's pretty impressive that you came up with that on the fly, just like that.
I was working on that all night last night.
Yeah, Belle comes to me the other day. It's like, man, don't make me work with Hand.
I never said anything like that.
Chris Hand is
I've worked with Chris before.
I love Chris Hand. I love him enough that I switched with him. He's got I think a couple of his kids have a play that they're doing this morning, which I'm very excited about hearing about. So
he's got good bumper music,
like a school thing.
He does have good bumper music. Our bumper music sucks, and I've told Belle K that repeatedly. But Belle says something about there's extra work that he has to do, or something.
I am more than willing to start hacking your interviews and monologues up to pieces just so we can make them legal to put on the air.
See what he does? Belle tells me that if I would just talk in the right places, we could have better bumper music.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that not correct?
That's pretty much it. If you would just learn when you should speak and when you shouldn't, we'd be great.
All right. Well, I'm going to speak now. Is that okay with you?
Go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Did you want the title?
Oh, I do. Episode 5. But we normally title our episodes, especially on the television side of things.
Oh, yeah.
Super Talk TV. Belle does not participate on TV because of the warrants. And that's all well and good. I mean, there's a couple of them lingering. But he does entitle our episodes every day. And today's episode, 565, is entitled
Matt Murphy, DAYPART. Oh, wait, I think I've lost the high ground on that one. Libertarian Brunch, 9 to noon.
You call it Libertarian Brunch?
Yeah.
Well, you know why not. I'll get a little energy here in a minute. I feel, I don't know, though. I mean, the idea of being off at 12 o'clock.
What are you going to do with yourself, man?
I'll be cutting grass by 1:15, Ken Weaver. That's exactly what I'll be doing.
And I'll still be here.
Oh.
1:15, I'll be cutting grass in Mount Juliet, I predict.
Oh. Just ship in some goats from South Dakota. Save them from Nome.
That's true. Oh, Christy can... I mean, if she's got any other goats acting like goats.
Yeah.
What And, you know, what frustrates me more than anything about that narrative and that story is that people think that you're just kind of a namby-pamby because you're sensitive about the fact that she shot the dog. I get that sometimes you have to do things that are bad. I get that sometimes you have to do stuff that is unpleasant. And I suppose that was her ultimate point. But sadly, in our reading of the narrative, those of us who are animal lovers recognize that you had about 14 different options before shooting the animal in the head in a gravel pit. And you chose to skip over every single one of those options and go directly. So for me, it wasn't the fact that she had to kill a dog. I get that some people have to kill a dog.
Right.
It's that she didn't have to kill the dog. And I think that's kind of the point. That's the separation between attitudes on that.
Well, it's the whole putting it in the book the way that she did. Look at the atmosphere in this country right now, going into an election. Yes, that is what you have to do on a farm sometimes, but do you have to? I don't understand what that had to do with anything in that book.
Well, and for me, Ken, did someone in the room, you imagine people sitting around a big room. Did someone not raise their hand and go,
exactly.
Hey, maybe we should, I don't know, maybe we should reconsider how this looks for you, Governor? I don't know. No, we're putting it in the book. We're talking about killing the dog.
Are you aware of the mainstream media?
You know, there are a lot of people that love their dogs and don't really understand. We're putting it in the book.
The editor was probably like, you got anything controversial we could stick in here? Oh, I killed a dog once. Oh, great. Let's tell that.
Here, let's go.
Well, let's not stop at that. How about a goat? You know, they're bull-headed.
Hey, I killed a bull, too. That's going too far.
That's what she said. She said, when I got done killing it, I realized my job wasn't fair. I got to kill something else. My bloodlust is not complete.
Yeah. She just, that was a lack of awareness.
Well, it was. And you know, look, do I think Christy Noem's a bad person? No, of course not. I don't think Christy Noem's a bad person. I think that, I think what she did, for me, goes a little bit to one's character. That you went to, I'm going to kill this dog because this dog's annoyed. Frankly, I think she killed the dog out of anger. That's what I think happened.
Well, that's the way it's written.
I mean, you know, yeah, she was mad because the dog ruined a pheasant hunt and killed a chicken. And she said she decided on the way home that she knew what she had to do. She took it out to the gravel pit and she killed it. So they're theirs. By the way, Belle, before we get away from it, over under on how many times I say good afternoon this morning?
I would say 3 times. 3 times.
3?
Yeah.
I think it depends on how many calls I take. There's a lot of calls. I would go over.
Yeah.
Because you get Weaver knows you get conditioned to this job, man.
I'll say at least 3, no more than 5.
All right, if anybody wants to take some loose bets on that, I'm willing to be bribed. Just let me know on the Members Nutrition Super Text line. Protesters were in Nashville yesterday, and I want to applaud them. And I know this might surprise some of you. But for me, this is not a matter of protest. This is not a matter of speech. It's a matter of threats and intimidation. It's a matter of disallowing freedom of movement based on one's ethnicity or religious affiliation. I see these things happening at Columbia, and now Columbia has been disbanded. Obviously, they took way too many steps, way too far. You see the disbanding at UCLA, once again, taking things way too many steps and way too far. For Vanderbilt, I have to give them a certain amount of kudos. Now, I don't know everything that happened. Initially, I planned on going over there, and I decided against it. I had a couple of other things I had to take care of. But at Vanderbilt University, there was a protest rally that went down yesterday, a pro-Palestinian, and with that, I would say a pro-Hamas rally. Took part in Nashville. I call it a pro-Hamas rally because I'm not really sure how one can be pro-Palestinian and not pro-Hamas. Hamas is supported by some 75% of the Palestinians that exist in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. Statistically, if you are pro-Palestinian, then you are by definition pro-Hamas. So I make no distinction between the two, and Hamas is a terrorist organization, so you have to explain to me how you are supporting the terrorism engaged in on October 7th and beyond in order for me to understand what your ultimate point is in protest to begin with. What does Free Palestine mean? As I've asked on my show many times, and I'll ask again, what will it take on all of these college campuses around the United States of America where all of these quote-unquote pro-Palestinian rallies are occurring? Explain to me. Just think about this in your mind's eye for just a moment. Close your eyes and think about this. What would it take for all of these people protesting, as dumb as we might think they are, as silly as they are, as useful as they are for the idiots that exist in America? What would it take for them to celebrate a victory? For those chanting Free Palestine, for those chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine, it will be free. What does victory look like for them? What would it take for these college campuses where these encampments still exist to erupt in celebration? Yay! We did it! Yay! We've accomplished it! We've freed Palestine. I would suggest to you that that would look very similar to the Holocaust. Tell me how I'm wrong. Tell me that I'm wrong. I would love to think that they are fighting for something else, but I can't figure out what that something else might be. However, I defend it. In order for America to exist as we were conceived, we battled in the United States of America way, way back in the day for freedom and for liberty and for the right to exist unencumbered by the demands or the will of others without a say in our future or our destiny. That was the entire point of the American Revolution, that we demand that we have a say, that God has given us certain rights, and that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We set it down in order to chart our own course. But with that is the recognition that we must accept that others have the ability to think differently than us. Others not only have the ability, but we must defend their right to believe differently, even if those belief systems are disgusting to us. And so just as I would defend the Klan member with regard to how the Klan member thinks, as disgusting as I might think the Klan member is, I would defend the individual that is anti-Israel or anti-Jewish. We cannot exist as the nation was conceived if we begin nipping away at the ability for people to speak freely. Now, obviously, there are certain exceptions that demonstrate the rule. Those exceptions exist to prevent riots, to prevent the incitement of violence, to prevent intimidation or threats, the very kind of activity that we're seeing on many college campuses. That is the design of how we have set up freedom of speech in America. That if it rises to the level of intimidation or threatening action, if it rises to the level of incitement for individuals to commit violence against groups of people or individual people, then we are going to curtail that speech, but only when absolutely necessary. What happened in the House of Representatives yesterday with this anti-Semitism legislation is a step way too far. And I want to talk about it next on the show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 9:23. Thank you for being with us. It is the Chris Ann Show. Matt Murphy in for Chris in for Matt on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Got a crash in the way. It's in Jordonia here in Nashville. The right shoulder is blocked. Briley Parkway southbound at the Ashland City Highway exit 24. Also, former President Trump weighs in on campus protests. Big decision could come today impacting the eligibility of a certain Nashville Democrat state rep to be on the 2024 ballot. All this and more at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I can't wait for that. I'm currently looking up where the heck Jordonia is.
Yeah, I have never heard of that.
Well, it's somewhere near Nashville.
It's somewhere here in Nashville.
Well, there you go. I mean, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
Call us up if you're from Jordonia.
Looks like that's going to be over there in West Nashville.
Oh, those folks. They know what time it is. I want to move over to Pegram.
Where's Pegram?
You don't know where Pegram is?
I've heard of it, but I don't know where it's at.
Toward Ashland City, a little south of Ashland City.
Ah, okay.
You know Ashland City.
I know Ashland City, yes.
Yeah,
Mighty fine community.
Oh, yeah. Pegram's a nice place to live, too.
Got a river runs right through it.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to find. Oh, yeah. And Ashland City, that's beautiful over there.
Yes, sir.
That's God's country. It's all God's country in Tennessee, Ken Weaver.
Yes, sir.
All right, news coming up in just a mere seconds on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And I'll get to, I have this delicious Reagan audio. So
Hey,
someone.
I hate to do this on air, but the top of your head's cut off and it's driving me nuts. Can you raise the camera a little bit?
There's only about 15 seconds left before the break there, Bel, okay?
Oh.
But that's okay. You've accomplished your task because I've completely forgotten what I was saying. Therefore,
You're the one who's always telling me, just tell me and I'll fix it.
well, you know what this is? See, Chris Hand normally does this because he's much. I mean, I'm not here to cast aspersions on Nashville's morning news, but it's the shortest morning news radio show in America. Ken Weaver.
Well, you hadn't even seen Kenny B or John Weaver.
I mean, so you want me to move this like this? Is that what you want me to do?
Yes, thank you.
Is that good?
Yes.
For those of you on Super Talk TV, I moved it for Bel K.
Well, you're always telling me, let me know, I'll move it.
Well, that's true because I complain that we don't have a monitor in here so I can see.
Every time I walk in there and do it myself, you're like, you just tell
I'm
me.
constantly worried that I'm going to get caught picking my nose.
Got to put Kenny B on an old Woolsworth catalog.
Stay out of the Woolsworth. That's a little old brother where out there reference. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cleanse the palate with some Ken Weaver and news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Waiting for that summer-like temperature to arrive here in Middle Tennessee. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. Police have cleared the UCLA pro-Hamas Palestinian protest encampment, made dozens of arrests this morning peacefully. Meanwhile, former President Trump did something the current president has not, and that is comment on the ongoing campus protests.
FBI director said that he worries about the right. Now, don't worry about the right. The right's fine. Worry about the left, because this is a movement from the left. These are radical left lunatics, and they got to be stopped now.
Here in Tennessee, protests have been mostly uneventful, including yesterday's pro-Hamas Palestinian rally at Centennial Park. Then the pro-Hamas Palestinian protesters and pro-Israel protesters were on the campus of UT in Knoxville, but they were peaceful. Right now in Nashville, we're watching what comes from a meeting today regarding the eligibility of a Democrat Nashville state rep to be on the 2024 ballot. One of the so-called Tennessee Three, Justin Jones, could be kicked off the ballot, which would leave only Republican challenger Laura Nelson. It comes less than a month after Nelson filed a challenge to the Davidson County Election Commission questioning the validity of Jones' signatures needed to qualify for the ballot. News Channel 5 all over that story. And that's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy in for Chris Hand. Chris Hand in for Matt Murphy starting at noon today. It's 9:37 right now. Glad to have you with us on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Someone just sent me a photograph. Is this true? Bell K, will you fact check this for me? Someone sent me a photograph of what is reportedly cricket. And I find it amazing that so many came out of the gate attempting to defend Christy Nome for her actions regarding cricket. And in doing so, they explained to me that cricket was a vicious animal that was accused of. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? That's cricket.
Yeah, that's the one that I have seen attributed as being her dog, but
we don't know if that's real or not. I mean, the internet makes up a lot of stuff.
The thing's sitting on a pile of grass, and that looks like an adult.
From what I understand, it was like a 14-month-old dog.
Look at there. There's that. That's supposedly cricket right there.
Yeah, if you can shoot that, you're not a nice human.
Well, I mean, it just goes against the. I understand that people were predisposed to want to defend Christy Nome, and without having all of the facts, and none of us have read the book, or at least I have not. I've not gotten an advanced copy of the book, but we have seen excerpts, and I don't want to relitigate the case. I had this pop up on my screen as someone sent me the photograph, and they said, I don't know if you've seen this, but this is supposedly the dog, which would check. I mean, that looks like a spaniel of some sort, or it looks like a hunting dog. It looks like a younger hunting dog. But the predisposition for those who wanted to defend Christy Nome was to say, well, I mean, Murphy, this was a dog that was attacking livestock. It was a vicious animal. Because my point was, look, if you got to get rid of the dog, there are plenty of ways to get rid of the dog that don't involve shooting it in the head with its with brains splattered all over the joint, and your kids asking where's cricket, and you have to explain where cricket is. You could give it to a shelter. Well, you can't do that with a vicious animal, Matt. Well, you can give it to a trainer. Well, you can't do that. This dog is not a vicious dog that I'm looking at right there. I'm just telling you. All right, let's talk about First Amendment. Let me defend the protesters at Vanderbilt University. That might surprise you. As much as I disagree with them, I defend their right to protest. And a pro-Palestinian rally took place yesterday. Palestine Hurrah Collective. I'm not making that up. That's their name. Says they wanted to hold the rally to advocate for the liberation of all oppressed people. Oh, good. I'm all for that. Pro-Palestinian marchers started downtown at Centennial Park, walked down to West End, ended up at Vanderbilt University campus. Not a very far walk, by the way. Protesters could be heard chanting phrases like Free Palestine and From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free as they marched down the street. The group was made up of Vanderbilt students and workers standing in solidarity. According to the Palestine Hurrah Collective and Fox 17 Nashville, the goal of this evening, and I'm saying that because that's where I'm getting the story from Fox 17 Nashville. The goal of the evening is to really show solidarity between community groups as well as student groups and sort of demanding an end to the genocide happening in Palestine right now. Fox 17 reached out to the Jewish Federation of Greater Nashville to ask how they felt about the march. And to their great credit, here's what the Jewish Federation said. According to Chief Impact Officer Deborah Olashansky, we absolutely support freedom of speech. We support the right to protest. We have sometimes ourselves been on the front lines of protests, and so we absolutely see that as a right and a fundamental piece of our society. Period. Good for them. We should and must distinguish between peaceful protesting and people acting in a fashion that might not be consistent with our ideology or our belief structure, and what's happening at Columbia and UCLA and some of the other college campuses around the United States of America. There is a great difference between saying dumb things and stripping a flagpole of the American flag and replacing it with a flag symbolizing Palestine. A great difference. And it would be a grave mistake not to understand the difference. So I have nothing but applause for what I see on the campus of Vanderbilt University as I understand it. There are several students, a smattering of nearly a dozen colorful tents, layered in protest banners and Palestinian flags dotting the lawn in front of Kirkland Hall. The scene has been there for the better part of a month. The encampment has had an uninterrupted presence on campus since the beginning of March. They've hosted events for non-camping students. They've had, I mentioned the kite painting, which is, it's my understanding, a very popular thing that they do over there, the kite painting. University officials confirmed to the Tennessean that there are currently no plans to remove the camping students as they have not broken any rules. Since the March 26th protest, there have been a limited number of demonstrations in reaction to the disciplinary action, including a small number of tents on campus, the statement said. To date, the students have been complying with university policy and have not disrupted university operations. So here's what I would say. If you're a homeless, if you're an urban outdoorsman, a homeless person, and you happen to have a radio and you're listening to me right now, I would encourage you to head on over to the campus of Vanderbilt and set up some shop over there. I mean, first off, we can't make homelessness illegal in the city of Nashville, right? That would be wrong. Number two, I mean, that's a great opportunity for you. Kind of slip in and intermingle amongst the students. That'd be okay, wouldn't it? I'm guessing that it would not be okay. One would hope that they're checking credentials and identification at the just outside of Kirkland Hall with regard to the students that are camping on property. Obviously, that's with my tongue in my cheek. Here's what I would say, that the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the right or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. That seems to be what the students at Vanderbilt are doing lawfully and peacefully. And I support that. What we don't support is the intimidation, the threats that exist on other campuses. What we don't support is the limitation of the freedom of movement on the part of many of these quote-unquote pro-Palestinian protesters that are literally prohibiting Jewish students from their freedom to move about the campus as they see fit. Not allowing them to move in certain areas, not allowing unaffiliated individuals to move in open spaces. That's wrong. That's intimidating, and it should be treated as lawless. And thankfully, that's what we're seeing. Jimmy is in the borough with a thought on all of this. Hey, Jimmy, thanks for calling. How are you?
Hey, Matt. How you doing?
I'm well.
I appreciate you filling in for Chris, and glad you guys play well together.
Of course. Absolutely.
So you're exploring this thing with the protests, and I appreciate you backing up the First Amendment. We all follow that and appreciate that as well. I kind of wish you would explore the third option, and we don't have proof of this. There's no examination of bank records and so forth, but the left has a history of manipulating this country. They used it with Antifa. They did the same thing with BLM. In fact, BLM came out, Patrice Culkin, and identified herself as a Marxist. They went further with transgender for disruption, simply for disruption as part of the agenda. And I wish that you guys would explore that when you present these other options, keeping this other option open as a possibility. That's all I'm really asking for.
What options? I'm confused. I must admit. What options are we talking about?
The option being that you're posing the question. Well, what is their end game? That was the question.
Oh, I see.
And I'm using the option of the end game is simply to cause disruption.
Oh, I don't think there's any question that you're right on the mark, Jimmy. The goal of those individuals that are behind the AstroTurf nature of what's happening across the country, there's no question about that. That these are funded, organized events. I do not believe that anything grassroots spreads as quickly as what we've seen spread, particularly on liberal arts campuses around the United States of America, starting in the Northeastern Corridor, spreading like wildfire, jumping over to the West Coast, and then filling in all parts in between. You saw some of the reaction on college campuses that are not predisposed to being that far left. Out in Texas, University of Alabama, and others, they were having none of it. Obviously, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, God bless those students. God bless those fraternity young men. I don't call them boys. I don't like calling them boys because I don't think they were acting like boys. I call them young men, and God bless them. And thankfully, we're seeing the best of America come out with the results of that event. If you missed it, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, the college president there came out, and after the pro-Palestinian students removed an American flag and replaced it with a Palestinian flag, the president said, no, we're not having any of that. He replaced the flag back, and then the flag was subsequently protected by a group of fraternity men who surrounded the flag and said, no, you're not getting in here. Those men need to be applauded, congratulated, and rewarded for their behavior. We need to encourage the next generation of young patriots in the United States of America, and that's what we do when we see something like this happen. Now, obviously, I understand that there are efforts. George Soros has long believed, and he's on record, that the only way you initiate wholesale change in one's government is to create such civil unrest that people come to the belief that you have to. And you start sowing those seeds of unrest in the major metropolitan areas and allow that unrest to filter out into the suburbs, which is what George Soros is doing. There's a reason that he found the low-hanging fruit of district attorney races around the country, because it fits the bill as to exactly what he wants to do. You find these soft-on-crime DAs, you get them elected in major metropolitan areas, you see the soft-on-crime policies have their impact and effect, you see more and more criminals on the street, you see more and more civil unrest, you see the cops being overwhelmed, you simultaneously vilify the police officers as you are doing all of this, claiming that the police officers are the real problem, as the police attempt to push back on the lawlessness that exists because the DAs won't put the lawless criminals in jail. Then the attention focuses on the police themselves, and the liberal skulls of mush, the useful idiots that don't understand what's happening, start attacking the police, suggesting that their heavy-handed tactics are the problem, not the criminals themselves. And suddenly you have unrest across the city. You have a police department that is unwilling or unable to get the job done because they understand that as soon as they put a criminal in jail, the DA will let them right back out. And so what is the result? Law-abiding citizens start believing that they have to take the law into their own hands, and they resort to vigilantism. And when this happens, you have a metropolitan area that is crumbling under its own weight, which is the point. None of it has to happen if we are to follow law and order. Respect of the law and respect of how the law gets changed has to be first on our minds when it comes to how we comport ourselves in the United States of America. If we have no respect of the law, then the basic building blocks and the foundation of the country that we created, it will collapse upon itself. And Soros knows that. And so he uses individuals for his own purposes toward this end. So I'm under no illusions that this is a grassroots movement across the United States of America. I would suggest to you that most people that are screaming Free Palestine have no idea what that means. All they know is what they've been told. Yell Free Palestine, and if anyone asks you what that means, you say that we have to stop the genocide that's happening in Gaza. There is no genocide happening in Gaza. The Israeli army, the IDF, is doing everything it possibly can to try to prevent civilian deaths. The Palestinians are pawns for Hamas, And Hamas is willing to kill as many Palestinians as necessary in order to accomplish their goals, which are largely public relations in nature. It's 9:52 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Got a problem in Thompson Station, drivers. An overturned tractor trailer is spilling diesel fuel onto the roadway, so part of Carter's Creek Pike is closed between Dodd Lane and Sparkman Road. Police explained the process to clear the pro-Hamas Palestinian Gaza war protest encampment at UCLA this morning. Hear the former president weigh in. Big meeting today that could impact the eligibility of a sitting Nashville Democrat state rep to be on the 2024 ballot. All that and more at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Mr. Ken Weaver. It is 2 minutes until that time. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy in for Chris Hand. Chris Hand in for Matt Murphy today. We did a little flippy flop, a little midday mix-up for you on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I will allow Mr. Hand to describe exactly why that was when he stops by at 12 o'clock high noon today on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. No, people, you cannot go get yourself any of the diesel fuel. No, don't even try it.
No, sir.
Don't do it. I understand how much diesel fuel is costing nowadays. Thank you, Joe Biden. But you can't, there's no, you don't bring out your gallon jugs and think you can grab some of that stuff.
Or trash bags.
Or trash bags or anything else for that matter. One of my favorite things to do is look at, watch when those Brinks trucks tump over, the Wells Fargo wagon tumps over, and people run out to get the chain. I don't know why it tickles people running around the interstate grabbing quarters.
Yeah, putting their life in danger.
Well, you got to get that cash money.
That's free money, buddy.
That's exactly. They're not going to come after any of y'all to get that money back.
No,
don't worry about it.
You spill it, you lose it.
That's right. That's right. You break it, you buy it, you spill it, finders, keepers, losers, weepers. That's what I learned. I don't think that has anything to do with diesel fuel, though. When we return, the House passed legislation yesterday that would establish a broader definition of what is described as anti-Semitism for the Department of Education to enforce anti-discrimination law. This is a mistake. I don't know that the Senate will take it up, but I believe it to be a mistake, and I'll explain why coming up in just a couple of minutes. Plus, what would Ronald Reagan say about all of this happening on university campuses? Well, we don't have to wonder. We can hear from the man himself, and you will next on the Chris Hand Show with Matt Murphy in for Chris Hand on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's time for news with Ken Weaver.
Ten o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Going to have more summer-like temperatures today. We're getting there rapidly. Right now, 76 degrees here on Music Row. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Well, police have cleared that pro-Hamas Palestinian protest encampment on the UCLA campus after hundreds of people defied police orders to leave. California Highway Patrol spokesman, Officer Alec Pareda, says officers gave them a lot of time to leave peacefully before the arrests.
We never want to resort to using force. We want to make sure this can come to as peaceful a resolution as possible. If we could talk it out, we will. And that's what they did there. They wanted to try and make sure that we can give them a last chance to just leave peacefully.
And then in New York City, before he went into the courtroom in the hush money trial, former President Trump commented,
"These are radical left lunatics. And they got to be stopped now because it's going to go on, and it's going to get worse and worse. And, they take over countries, okay?"
He's talking about these campus protests across the nation. As for today's proceedings in that hush money case, Trump's defense is going to have the chance to cross-examine Keith Davidson, the attorney who brokered that $130,000 hush payment to Stormy Daniels. The defense has said that payment was meant to protect Trump's family, but Davidson has testified Trump wanted to silence Daniels because the Access Hollywood tape had come out, and Trump's campaign couldn't take another sex scandal. Here in Nashville, News Channel 5 says a meeting will be held today that could determine whether a sitting Nashville state representative is eligible to be on the 2024 ballot. Justin Jones' Republican challenger Laura Nelson filed a challenge to the Davidson County Election Commission questioning the validity of Jones' signatures needed to qualify. If Jones gets kicked off the ballot, Nelson will be the only candidate on the ballot for District 52. And that's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
It is the Chris Hand Show, 10:07. Good morning. Welcome in. My name is Matt Murphy. I am not Chris Hand. I'm in for Chris this morning. Chris in for me this afternoon. We did a bit of a flippy flop as I'm taking over the 9 to noon slot. Chris taking over the noon to 3 slot. Chris Hand had an appointment this morning. He'll tell you more about that at high noon. It was an appointment involving his kids, and hopefully everything went well, or everything is going well. I appreciate you being a part of the show today, 615-737-9986. You're invited to give us a call. You're also invited to join us on the Members Nutrition Super Text line. Obviously, plenty of opportunity to do that. At 11:05 or thereabouts today, we'll talk with Representative Tim Burchett about the vote happening yesterday, the anti-discrimination vote in the halls of the House of Representatives. We'll also talk to him about Marjorie Taylor Greene and her effort to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson. That is coming up at 11:05 or thereabouts. This morning on Super Talk 99.7 WGN. I think I just called it afternoon. So that's one. I think the over-under is set at 3.5, and I'm at 1. Okay, so the UCLA campus disruption has been dissolved and dispersed, but not before participants in the ongoing Palestinian Solidarity encampment made asses of themselves by demanding certain things like vegan and gluten-free food. The request list was obtained by Fox News, and I laugh because I'm looking at the list, and it's pretty funny. Bill Malugin gathered the list together. It includes a variety of other supplies, including objects for use in clashes with counter-demonstrators and police, such as gas masks, shields, and skater helmets. In addition to that, as Fox News obtained the Google Doc with the list of demands, they also requested vegan and gluten-free food, quote, super bright flashlights, rope and zip ties, lotion, no sunscreen, it says, knee and elbow pads, rain ponchos, amongst other things, utility gloves without reinforced knuckles. They also wanted EpiPens, non-steroid inhalers, and headlamps. For food, they demanded hot food for lunch, and then they put beside that in parentheses, important, vegan and gluten-free food. The other day, Belle and I were joking about this on our show in the afternoons, and hopefully you're able to listen to every single part of it every day. The other day, we were joking that they would demand like gluten-free pizza. I saw a meme last night, and I was not able to download it so I could play it for you today, where they had supplied, you know, it's one of these things where they overlaid a different voice over this woman that was speaking and making demands at Columbia University. They had her talking about the type of pizza that she wanted. It was like, okay, what kind of pizza do you guys want? Well, we want
Wait
pizza.
Wait a minute, is this the woman, the brown-haired woman?
Yeah, right.
It was, and they overdubbed her voice.
Right. We want pizza, but we want gluten-free crust, and we want faux pepperoni. We don't want real pepperoni, so it has to be faux pepperoni.
No meat.
No cheese, no dairy, and the tomato-based sauce is uncomfortable for some of our tummies. So, and they're like, well, hold on, what if we can't find meat-free pepperoni? Well, then don't bring us anything, just the box, but only if the box is recycled, 100% recycled cardboard. And if you can't find that, then nothing.
And then we'll accuse you of starving us.
Well, okay. You know, the individuals on the campus of UCLA, I mean, obviously things got out of control. You have to laugh to keep from crying. But there are some voices that are useful with regard to learning from this experience. There is a keen difference, and we need to understand it, between exercising our First Amendment rights as citizens of the United States of America and falling prey to individuals that try to intimidate us or act in a manner that is inconsistent with law and order. We had someone that spoke to this quite eloquently, I might add, and that person was none other than Ronald Reagan. He speaks to us from the grave. Ronald Reagan talked about protesters, mostly peaceful protesters. This is a montage that I saw on social media. I would give a hat tip credit, but I don't know who originally posted it. But for your enjoyment, here's how Ronald Reagan reacted to university protest in the 1960s.
Those people told you for days in advance that if the university sought to go ahead with that construction, they were going to physically destroy the university. Why did you
negotiate many times?
Negotiate? What is to negotiate? What is?
Well, the university is a public institution.
That's right. But the university,
its own community, and for the community of Berkeley that live around it.
All of it began the first time some of you who know better and are old enough to know better let young people think that they had the right to choose the laws they would obey as long as they were doing it in the name of social protest.
I'm sick and tired of the argument about whether some effort to enforce law and order is going to escalate anything at all. Plain truth of the matter is this has to stop, and it has to stop like the day before yesterday.
I would like to propose that the issue is that on the campuses, you who are adults, you who are entrusted with those young people and their guidance, have a responsibility to make it plain to them from the very beginning that you yourselves do not tolerate the kind of conduct that has led to the burning of Wheeler Hall, that has led to 2 murders on the campus of UCLA.
You created an atmosphere on campus where no one wants to listen.
You are a liar.
I have read and I have been questioned since I've been here about certain demonstrations against my coming. And I would like to say just one thing, and to those who demonstrate so. I wonder if they have ever asked themselves that if they should have the kind of government they apparently seek, no one would ever be able to do what they're doing again.
Anything, and I have a feeling that if you check closely on some of the more militant of those leaders who are advocating violence, you will find that if you settle whatever issue it is that has them worked up today, they'll be back tomorrow morning with another issue. But I think the time has come for them to make a choice and to decide whether they want to continue to even tolerate these false prophets in their midst who are, if anything, destroying their own community. I don't think that taking to the streets and rioting and disorder has ever solved anything or ever will. Those who would trade our freedom for the soup kitchen of the welfare state have told us they have a utopian solution of peace without victory. They call their policy accommodation. And they say if we'll only avoid any direct confrontation with the enemy, he'll forget his evil ways and learn to love us. All who oppose them are indicted as warmongers. They say we offer simple answers to complex problems. Well, perhaps there is a simple answer. Not an easy answer, but simple. If you and I have the courage to tell our elected officials that we want our national policy based on what we know in our hearts is morally right, we cannot buy our security, our freedom from the threat of the bomb, by committing an immorality so great as saying to 1 billion human beings now enslaved behind the Iron Curtain, give up your dreams of freedom, because to save our own skins, we're willing to make a deal with your slave masters. Recently, in some places in the nation, there's been a disturbing reoccurrence of bigotry and violence. If I may, from the platform of this organization, known for its tolerance, I would like to address a few remarks to those groups who still adhere to senseless racism and religious prejudice. To those individuals who persist in such hateful behavior, if I were speaking to them instead of to you, I would say to them, you are the ones who are out of step with our society. You are the ones who willfully violate the meaning of the dream that is America. And this country, because it's what it stands for, will not stand for your conduct. There are cities in Michigan. Oh, shut up.
That's the man himself, Ronald Wilson Reagan. A good 4-minute montage. You can find that on my X machine site at Matt Murphy Show.
That last piece there is right up there with "You Missed Me" when the balloon popped when he was in Germany.
Yeah, when the balloon boom, you missed me. And that was after he got shot.
Yeah.
Shut up. There was a protester. He was giving a speech in Michigan, and there was a protester, and the protester wouldn't shut up, so finally he told him to shut up. That is Ronald Reagan speaking directly to the United States of America today about how you confront these ridiculous, nonsensical ideas. I think the most important thing he said in that 4-minute montage, and that's, by the way, I do know who brought it out. It's Daily Caller who actually came out with that montage. And I wish that they had presented a montage without some of the music in the background, because I think it made it more difficult to hear Ronald Reagan. But I didn't put it together, so I'm not critical of it. I'm not going to criticize it. I think the most poignant message that he sent, not only that the university adults are not acting as adults and they're not explaining to the kids on the university campus, and I say kids, I'm talking about the 20-year-olds, that just because you have different feelings about a matter, just because you think differently on something, just because you have the right to say something on this matter, and America grants you that right, your freedom of speech, does not give you the ability to violate basic rules of law and order. And for some, they think that that is what protest means. Violent protest is not protected. And Ronald Reagan understood that. And it's high time that Joe Biden stepped up and said something about it. Where is our president today? Where is Joe Biden? Does he not have the ability to speak on this?
He just did.
And what did he say?
I didn't pay attention.
He said violent protest is not protected. Well, what about speaking to the message being sent from college campuses to the rest of the world with regard to, quote unquote, free Palestine? What about taking a stand on that issue? I don't expect it will happen anytime soon. He'll take the middle ground, the middle road, and suggest, well, we don't support violent intervention or violent protest. Well, thanks a lot, Joe. We know that. How about you step up, step out, and speak publicly and more forcefully on this matter? I'm glad that you decided 3 days too late to actually speak on it. But the other thing that Ronald Reagan said, and I think it goes to the heart of the matter as well, is this concept that if we granted them, and it's a little bit of what I asked earlier today, this concept that if we granted all of these protesters everything that they claimed to want, there would be no one left to protest in the days and weeks and months to follow, because they would not be allowed to do so. If they achieved the type of government that they claim that they want, that type of government would necessarily squash their ability to protest their own government. On what planet does that make sense? You are arguing for future generations not to have the ability to speak out. As dumb as you might sound, as dumb as we think you are, we agree with your right to speak on these matters. You are promoting a socialist government and a socialist system that would preclude your ability from speaking on these matters. How does that make sense? How does that jive logically? And obviously, and of course, it doesn't. Ronald Reagan, 4 good minutes. If you want to find more on that, it's on my social media page, on my X Machine page, at Matt Murphy Show. That's at Matt Murphy Show. Your calls coming up, your thoughts on all of these things, plus how the anti-Semitism bill is a step too far in the House of Representatives. We'll speak on that in a moment. It's 10:21 on Super Talk.
All right, we got a problem for you drivers there in Williamson County, Thompson Station to be precise. An overturned tractor-trailer spilling diesel fuel has Carters Creek Pike shut down between Dodd Lane and Sparkman Road. And President Biden just broke his silence on Gaza war protests on college campuses. We'll let you hear it coming up at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You might get to hear it a little sooner than that. I've got a couple of slips of audio pulled up for you. Joe Biden spoke for almost 4 minutes, which is that's a big day for Joe. I imagine we'll call a lid on it around lunchtime if he's all tuckered out. He spoke for a good 4 minutes on the matter of civil unrest around the United States of America and some of the protests on college campuses. And I don't want to get in front of Ken Weaver here, but, well, I mean, this is he can't. Why doesn't someone tell him to clear his throat before he gets to a microphone? Now, listen to this.
Put to the test two fundamental American principles. Excuse me. The first.
He walks up to the microphone and he just starts yapping. I mean, this is from, I'm pulling this from the POTUS website, or from the POTUS X machine. They say, this was posted 15 minutes ago. Tune in as I deliver remarks, it said, as if Joe Biden's posting this video himself. And it says President Joe Biden. And there's the official sign language person right next to President Joe Biden. And this is, I'm not starting this in the middle. I'm starting this from the beginning. This is how it starts.
Put to the test two fundamental American principles. Excuse me. The first is the right to free speech.
Okay.
And for people to peacefully assemble and make their voices heard.
All right.
The second is the rule of law. Both must be upheld. We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent. The American people are heard. In fact, peaceful protest is in the best tradition of how Americans respond to consequential issues.
I'm compelled to note, look, I understand that there were certain people on January 6th that went into the Capitol and need to be dealt with. I understand that there were limited amounts of people that allowed their emotions to get the better of them, and they committed acts of violence against Capitol police officers that needed to be punished. The vast, vast majority of the American people that were there on January 6th that have been repeatedly harassed by law enforcement officials, by the FBI and other organizations purporting to be for quote-unquote law and order are being just that, harassed. And some of them have been unlawfully jailed as a result of their presence, not inside, but outside the Capitol on January 6th. I don't need to be lectured by this dude about law and order and about peaceable assembly. The Democrats for the last 4 years have vilified peaceable assembly. I'm not talking about those that broke into the Capitol. They have to be dealt with. But you know how they should have been dealt with? The vast majority of them? Yes, they should have been punished. That punishment should have involved fining them. That punishment should have been involved perhaps even jailing them for a short period of time if it was determined that they unlawfully broke into the Capitol and did wrongdoing. But this idea that we're jailing people for years at a clip for no violence, simply for entering the Capitol area? Don't tell me about peaceable assembly, guy.
But neither are we a lawless country. We're a civil society.
Wait, what's wrong with him that he keeps coughing? I mean, I understand he's old. I understand. I mean, is it something?
He eats a lot of dairy, and it's, the ice cream and everything. It just flims up his
maybe. I mean,
cords.
is that? I'm thinking. I mean, honesty compels me to ask the question: Is it the drugs that they put him on?
Could be.
That cause him to cough so much. He can't offer a speech without coughing and going on.
Respond to consequential issues, but neither are we a lawless country.
Here comes.
We're a civil society, and order must prevail. Throughout our history, we've often faced moments like this because we are a big, diverse, free-thinking, and freedom-loving nation. In moments like this, there are always those who rush in to score political points. But this is.
I see what he said. I see Joe Biden. He's a cooler head. Joe Biden has no interest in delivering this speech. Joe Biden waited for 3 days to deliver this speech, or even longer. Why? I'll have more commentary in a moment. Right now, let's get some news from the cool-headed Ken Weaver on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
10:30 on the dot this Thursday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, waiting for those summer-like temperatures headed our way. Tell you about it during the full forecast in 2 minutes. President Biden breaking his silence on the month-long Gaza war protests on college campuses, saying order must prevail.
Breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not peaceful protest. It's against the law.
Now, he said there should be no place on college campuses or in America for anti-Semitism or threats against any Jewish person. Then he threw in Islamophobia or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. And he said the protests have not prompted him to rethink Mideast policies. Now, earlier today, police cleared the one at UCLA, and the California Highway Patrol spokesman, Officer Alec Pareda, said officers gave protesters plenty of time to give up peaceably.
There's a lot of tactics that go into it. Our officers that were here tonight are part of a special response team. They are trained in different ways on how to handle crowd control.
Now, all of the arrests seemed peaceful. NASA latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
1036 Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. You know, I was just talking to newsman Ken Weaver about all of the timing going on here. And we live in a world where it is very difficult to know what's real and what's not real, what is being fabricated and what is being organized and constructed, not in plain sight, but hidden in the shadows and then brought out to us and presented to us as real or reality. What I mean by this, the other night when New York City police officers, and to his credit, Mayor Eric Adams, had finally had a belly full, as my grandpa would say, of this nonsense at Columbia, what with the taking of Hamilton Hall. And they went into Hamilton Hall 2 nights ago. I said on social media at the time, on Facebook and on the X machine, y'all be careful. If one of those agitators decides to do something that creates a response by which the New York City Police Department has to use aggressive tactics or what would be perceived as violent tactics in order to take them down, and God forbid, if one police officer has to shoot a protester, it's almost as if some of the agitators want that to happen. And I was fearful of that because I do believe that some of these agitators on college campuses want a Kent state. That's what they want. But it didn't happen. Which leads to another question about what went down last night. And I don't think there's anything wrong with not having answers but asking the questions. And Ken and I were just talking about it. Like, all of this was reaching a crescendo, and then suddenly everybody calmed down.
Yeah.
Suddenly everybody said, oh, we're good. We'll disperse. No big deal.
Yeah.
We'll take off. And then before you know it, here's the President of the United States offering remarks about the events. I don't know that we have answers, but I think these questions need to be explored further.
ABC News turned their feed off the second he turned around. And it sounded like to me there may have been only like a handful of reporters there.
Well,
not the entire press corps.
Well, he can't possibly be expected to answer questions about whether or not the messages being presented on college campuses are the appropriate message to be sent with regard to the conflict happening in the Middle East, right? I mean, no. There are good people on both sides, Ken.
Yeah.
That's what the president wants you to know.
Take questions, dude.
This entire thing is born out of his fear of losing Michigan.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going with all of this, as Ken and I were talking during the break, that the president or his handlers, I don't think Joe Biden knows his butt from a hole in the ground, but his handlers understand they want this situation just to go away. They'll do anything to make this situation go away. The last thing he needs is to remind America that he isn't really in charge, and that he has no control over any of this. He has no ability to lead. And the last thing they need is to remind the real America of that fact. I mean, we in Tennessee, do we really, what happens on the campus of Harvard or Yale is of no real consequence, but his inability to manage it and to handle it and to send the right message to the rest of the American people is obvious. And every day that these protests on college campuses are out there, it reminds us of this. At least the protests that have devolved into threats and intimidation and a lack of freedom of movement amongst college students and whatnot. I'm not talking about the Vanderbilts. That's fine, whatever. Have your tents over in the corner there. Just allow everybody else to go about their business, which is what they are largely doing. That is freedom of speech. We're talking about the UCLA crowd and the Columbia crowd. And I agree, it's just odd and interesting it's almost as if, and I'm not suggesting this is what happened, I don't know, but it's almost as if someone got to someone in leadership and said, hey, man, let's cut a backroom deal here. Y'all go home. Y'all collect yourselves. Y'all go have a gluten-free snack. And let us get reelected, and we'll take care of you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We'll take care of it.
Well, now you got ABC's White House reporter Mary Bruce seemingly carrying the water. I mean, listen to the verbatim of this report. I'm going to read it for you, okay?
All right.
So this was the first time we have heard from the president on these protests in 10 days, she says. That was before the situation really escalated to what it is now. But President Biden saying there is not a time to score political points, saying this is not a moment for politics. Because, of course, as we saw yesterday, his top rival Donald Trump has been out there on the campaign trail to promote himself as someone who can take on crime in this country, to try to make a political point. The president here trying to counter that. Joe Biden didn't say anything about politics in that 4-minute statement. So, see, this is what is going on in the mainstream media. You have a media that they will run a clip of Biden talking for like 4 or 5 seconds, and then the reporters out there carry the rest of it.
I just love how the media, the mainstream press, and ABC is included in this. I love how they search around for days trying to find some rationale to hang their hat on with regard to why Biden's not speaking. And then finally they found it. It's like they found, he doesn't want to this is way serious, guys. He doesn't want to politicize any of this, guys.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be political with this. But no one's asking him to just lead, man. Be the president of the United States of America.
Yeah.
Speak for the American people. Instead, this is what we
This
get.
isn't a moment for politics. It's a moment for clarity. So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is.
Okay, he's mangling the language. He can't read from the cue cards. Let's back it up again and
Let me be clear.
Be clear.
Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not a peaceful protest.
Well, there you go.
I didn't know that.
I was a little confused, Ken.
Yeah.
But thank you to the president. He could have come out 10 or 15 days ago and said this, but thank you to Mr. President for so we're not allowed to commit acts of violence against other people. That's not peaceful protest. Well, that's good to know. Wow. Everything's plain as day now. Why don't you speak directly to the people at Columbia, directly to the agitators that are filtering in to these various college campuses and explain to them what's going to happen to them if they continue their actions? I'm certain that they want, now that you've spoken, Mr. President.
It's against the law.
Oh, it's against the law. Well, there you go. If it's against the law, I'm sure they won't do any more of it.
Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education.
Well, you heard what he said there. He said, "Dissent is a service of democracy."
Yeah.
It's education.
Look. It's basically a matter of fairness. It's a matter of what's right. There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos. People have the right to get an education, the right to get a degree, the right to walk across the campus safely without fear of being attacked.
Well, look, here's my takeaway. I could play you the other 2 minutes. There's about another minute or so of that. Here's the takeaway on this. All of you college students who are running around screaming Free Palestine, Joe Biden's not your president. Joe Biden's not your friend. He just announced that. All of you that say that this is the way to get your demands being that we don't do business with the Jews. I mean, that's the only demand that I've heard. From Columbia to UCLA to Texas to wherever these protests happen, the demands are the same. We demand that the university divest themselves from any connection with the Israeli government or the Israeli people. that suggests to me that you want to have businesses in the United States of America or universities and businesses in the United States of America stop doing business with the Jews. This reminds me of a historical moment in time where before World War II, when Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany, he demanded that, wait for it now, businesses and government organizations stopped doing business with the Jews. Now, I'm not here to tell you that we're about to see the next Holocaust, because good Americans will prevent that from happening. But if these kids on college campuses had their way, I'm not so sure. What do you think Free Palestine means? It means the elimination of the Jewish people in that area of the world. Now, I'm certain that some of them would tell you they could go wherever they wanted. Others would suggest that we should do the will of nations like Iran or organizations like Hezbollah or Hamas. And those organizations would tell you that a world free of the Jewish people is the world that they want. That would suggest genocide. Look, the political left does this all the time, and this case is no different. They declare what they want by declaring that they're against what they truly want and suggesting that the other side is actually doing it. They point their fingers at Israel, and they claim that Israel is engaged in genocide. It is what they want to do to the Jewish people, and they are using that as a suggestion that it's appropriate that they respond in the same manner. In the meantime, the lawfare of Donald Trump continues. As he is unable to speak mostly on these matters, he finds a way to do so, and he spoke on it earlier today. He was the only president or ex-president to speak on it until about 20 minutes ago when Joe Biden decided to give it 3 minutes of a prepared remark that he couldn't deliver. Look, this president has sent a clear message to all of you young people out there. He's not your guy. He's the old stodgy guy that sees it the old stodgy way. I'm just going to play this game the way you want to play it. Joe Biden doesn't get to have it both ways. He's either with you guys or he's against you. Is that not right? Is that not what you've told us? You're either with us or against us. You either agree to our demands or you're against us. Well, Joe Biden just declared that he's against you, college students. So you respond in kind this November. I would suggest you vote Trump. He seems more like your kind of guy. Mike is next. Hey, Mike. Thank you for calling.
Hey, what's going on? I just want, Biden's an idiot. Everybody knows that. My wife is from Jerusalem, and she's Jewish, and I'm a Christian. And, we get along totally good. Everything's totally fine. And she is appalled by this. I mean, this is a nut job. I mean, it's crazy. And I don't know what to do. She's walking around, so like, oh, my family and, her family's been affected by this. Her mom, her dad, they've been affected by this, and it's a nut. It's crazy. So I don't know what to do.
Do her parents still live overseas, or are they here in America?
No, they live in Israel.
Are they okay?
Yeah, they're good, but they've had rocket attacks and all that other stuff. So she married a Tennessee redneck. There you go.
What it occurs to me, Mike. Does your wife vote Republican? Does she vote conservative?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah.
Does it annoy her that, when we talk about the Jewish vote, we traditionally talk about, the Jewish people as they have settled up in the northeastern corridor primarily and how they gravitate to voting for Democrats. And for the life of me, I can't understand why they consistently vote more Democrat than Republican. Do you ever talk to your wife about that?
Well, I do. And you know what? I retired out of the Marine Corps 24 years. And
God bless your service. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes,
And, we live on a farm here in Bethpage, Tennessee, and, she's got a Mandora and, all that other stuff, and she does her thing. I'm Irish Catholic, so it's total opposite difference. But we love each other, and she can't stand how I think Hamas is doing to her people.
Look, I think your wife, and she's probably been there for a long, long time, but I think she represents a swing in attitude. I think there are more and more Jewish people in the United States of America. And Mike, thank you for your call, and thank you for your service. 24 years in the United States Marine Corps. God bless you. I don't know if, am I allowed to say, I don't think I'm supposed to say Semper Fi, right?
You're not a Marine.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so that's be inappropriate.
I wanted to say it to him, though,
That's for another Marine to say.
Okay, well, all of you Marines in the listening audience, give them a big hoorah. That said, I think Jewish Americans are coming around to the idea, like many Americans. Look, the Democrats need these cultural identity politics in order to survive. And more Americans are seeing through it, whether it's Jewish Americans, black Americans. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's 10:52 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. When we return, I will tell you how I am struggling with whether or not our culture is salvageable. I'll explain what that means in a moment on Super Talk.
11 o'clock on the dot this Thursday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Still got Carter's Creek Pike there in Williamson County. Thompson Station specifically closed between Dodd Lane and Sparkman Road due to an overturned tractor trailer spilling all its diesel fuel. Full forecast in 2 minutes. President Biden finally breaking his silence on the Gaza war protests on college campuses, saying he upholds the right to peaceful protests alongside the rule of law.
There should be no place on any campus, no place in America for anti-Semitism or threats of violence against Jewish students. There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans.
Yeah, Biden said the protests have not prompted him to rethink Mideast policies. Former President Trump weighed in hours before Biden.
FBI director said that he worries about the right. Now, don't worry about the right. The right's fine. Worry about the left, because this is a movement from the left. These are radical left lunatics. And they got to be stopped now.
President Trump, or rather former President Trump, speaking to reporters before heading into the courtroom for that hush money trial there in New York City. Meanwhile, police still clearing out any remnants of the pro-Hamas Palestinian encampment there on the UCLA campus after hundreds of protesters defied police orders to leave. California Highway Patrol spokesman Officer Alec Pareda says they gave him plenty of time.
We never want to resort to using force. We want to make sure this can come to as peaceful a resolution as possible. If we could talk it out, we will. And that's what they did there. They wanted to try and make sure that we can give them a last chance to just leave peacefully.
More than 1,600 people have been arrested at 30 schools across the country in recent weeks. And right now in Nashville, we're watching what comes from a meeting today regarding the eligibility of a Democrat Nashville state lawmaker to be on the 2024 ballot. News Channel 5 says one of the so-called Tennessee Three, Justin Jones, could be kicked off the ballot, which would leave only Republican challenger Laura Nelson on the ballot. It comes less than a month after Nelson filed a challenge to the Davidson County Election Commission questioning the validity of Justin Jones' signatures needed to qualify for the ballot. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
11:06 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Bell K just offering a final solution.
Shut up.
What?
Shut up. There's a reason I didn't say that on the air. I don't want to get fired.
Gosh. It is the Chris Hand Show. My name is Matt Murphy. I'm not Chris Hand. Chris in for me. I'm in for Chris. Chris asked me to come in for him, and I did. And now he's coming in for me at 12 o'clock. So we're doing a little bit of a midday flip-flop. And with that in mind, I begged of Congressman Tim Burchett to stop by via the Chris Hand hotline, now called the Matt Murphy hotline, to give his thoughts on some of the things going on across the United States of America, nay, the world. And Congressman Burchett is always generous with his time. Tim, good afternoon. I almost did it. Good morning. How are you?
Well, good morning to you, brother. Actually, it's afternoon in the free town of Nashville.
The swampy swamp, right? I don't. They say not to ask questions that you don't at least have an idea of the answer, but I'm going to do that because I think I know probably where you were on this yesterday, but I've not seen the votes. I know that this proposal yesterday, the anti-discrimination bill, the anti-Semitism bill, the legislation that passed that would establish a broader definition of anti-Semitism, passed 320 to 91. Where were you on that?
Well, believe it or not, I voted for it, and I'll tell you why. Because I felt like it was important to send a message that this country would not stand for anti-Semitism, that we would stand with these Jewish folks. I guess we're just kind of covered up with it. In Washington, at George Washington University, for instance, the president of the university, now this isn't going to be some moderate or conservative by any stretch of the imagination, has called on the city of Washington to provide law enforcement because the Jewish kids on this campus weren't safe. And the mayor of Washington, D.C. turned them down, flat out. Said, no, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, we had that story yesterday. Didn't the mayor say that it would be bad publicity or something or another?
Yeah, well, she's bad publicity in herself. If you remember the day we had a hearing on the crime in Washington, D.C., where they sent, I think it was 5 white men up there to talk to us, and I actually chastised them. I said, this is a predominantly black town, and you're sending white people here. And Quasi Mafumi, who is a black man, former head of the NAACP, now in Congress, he actually stopped me in the hall and thanked me for asking that question, because it was just, Washington, D.C. is in a total state of denial. And the day that we had the hearing, if you remember, there was somebody carjacked in broad daylight while we were having the hearing in one of the nicer areas. So Washington, D.C. is a disaster, but it is really a microcosm of the rest of this dadgum country. These colleges have allowed this hate speech that is, it's to the point of where they're calling for the death of Jews, and it's being enforced in the classroom. Now, we've got to take a stand on it, and I don't, and I've talked. We had a constitutional lawyer on the House floor talking to us about it, and that he felt like it passed constitutional muster. And there's other interpretations. It is really, it's pretty much non-binding what was written. So I held my nose and I voted for it, because I think it's that important that we take a stand.
My concern is that it does not distinguish, and look, friends can disagree on this matter, and I'm not going to turn you into an enemy because we might disagree on your vote. That said, my concern is that it does not make the clear distinction between those expressing themselves through speech and those acting in a manner which directly intimidates or threatens other people, regardless of why they're being threatened or intimidated. And I just think that this goes a step too far toward some sort of national standard outlawing hate speech. I think we need to protect that speech which is unpopular, even if it's disgusting and repugnant. I think you answer bad speech with more speech, not less.
Yeah, I don't argue with you, and I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I just felt when I read it, of course, I'm not an attorney, and that hinders me a lot of times with this stuff, when they start talking back and forth, we had attorneys on the floor going back and forth, and they would change their opinion of it, and then they would go back the other direction. So I voted for it. It passed. I doubt it will pass in that form in the Senate. If it does pass at all, it is not. It's non-binding from what I understood. So we'll see what happens with it, but we're a long ways off from it doing anything. And of course, if you're worried about enforcement, there is no enforcement anymore at the federal level of anything. We've got we've got a gutless Republican Party, a Marxist Democrat Party, and the people that write the big checks seem to be the ones that win, because you can't get, case in point, I had this legislation last year about the Antifa crowd wearing their mask, their COVID mask to hide their identity when they were committing crimes, and I tried to get an enhancement. It didn't go anywhere with the Democrats, and it probably won't go anywhere with the Republicans. And the main reason is there's no dollars behind it. Both parties.
I'm told by the powers that be, your handlers, that you've got a hard out in like 2 minutes, and so I want to abide by that. But I want to get to the CIA front. I know that you're concerned about CIA actions during Trump. Before I do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene is serious with regard to the motion to vacate, and do you think this will happen? If so,
well, actually, she just sent me a text and wanted to sign on my letter on the OAN situation, where the Democrats are trying to knock a conservative television show off the air. Yeah, she's serious. She's a serious lady. And but I don't think the votes are there. I'm afraid if we do this, it will hand the gavel to the Democrats, or, as I've said, Hakeem Jeffries light. It would either be Hakeem Jeffries or one of his lieutenants that considered to be a moderate, because we've got Republicans in districts where Biden won by 15 points. So, I think she's serious, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
With regard to OAN, I mean, and obviously I fully support your defense of news organizations presenting the news, even if they're presenting the news in a particular fashion. I mean, I defend MSNBC all the time, and I hate what they have to say on MSNBC because I believe in a robust, free press. Walk me through the assaults on this, and if you can, in combination, because I got to go quick. This CIA deal, apparently you're uncovering, Tim, where the CIA is actively admitting that they did not inform the president of the United States about certain matters that they were undertaking. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's an undercover reporter, and I've got the guy on tape, a CIA, I believe he's a director, and lo and behold, they called the CIA to ask about him. They said, well, he no longer works here, and so nobody knows where he is or what he's doing. But, yeah, they were not briefing Trump when he was a candidate, and then they would not disclose information to him when he was president. So it was, it's the shadow government. We talk about that all the time, but that's why you've got to have, if he wins this next time, he needs to knock about a third out of a lot of those alphabet agencies and put people in that are loyal to this country, because it is a tail wagging the dog. We've got people that are corrupted and compromised, and they are running the show. And that's why things like the FISA warrants are so important to them. If they could violate the Constitution, that's spy on Americans, because that keeps them in power.
Congressman Burchett, if it were you telling me that you had to go, I would keep you on for the next 5 or 10 minutes. But Rachel says you have to go, so she's very important. So I will say goodbye. We'll suspend it until next time, and we'll talk again very soon.
Thanks, brother. Pray for our country, and please vote.
Amen. On both fronts. There's Congressman Tim Burchett. I knew he had a hard out, and I only extended him by an extra minute or so. Completely disagree with his vote on the bill regarding anti-Semitism and the changing of the definition. But I want to demonstrate to you how friends can disagree on things, remain friends. I could have bogged down with him, and I don't want to do that. I like Tim. I think he's a good guy. He immediately, after saying that he voted in favor of the legislation, started saying how he didn't believe the legislation would do anything or that it wouldn't pass the Senate. So he understands that it is a step. I just consider it a step too far. You will find no better friend of the Jewish people than Matt Murphy. You will find no stronger stand against ridiculous, nonsensical, gross, disgusting hate speech than Matt Murphy. I am here to tell you that you do not want a country that begins picking and choosing that speech which we will allow and that speech which we will not, absent real and present danger against individuals or groups. Now, obviously, we set certain guardrails, certain parameters, but we must defend those guardrails regularly by insisting that there are real and present dangers to individuals involved in the limitation of speech, i.e., screaming fire in a crowded theater where there is no fire. Right? You're allowed to do that. Most people get this wrong. Well, Matt, you can't scream fire in a crowded theater. Yes, you can. You have to suffer the consequences if there's actually no fire. If there's a fire, everybody's going to laud you as a hero. But if there is no fire, you have to accept the consequences of putting individual people and groups of people in harm's way. Similarly, if I tell you on the radio that there's a fire and there's a fire, I suffer no consequences. But if I incite you to action in a way that might put people in danger on radio or on the public square or anywhere, then I have to suffer the consequences. Hate speech is a phrase that is made up in order to marginalize individuals who say things that most of us disagree with. What good is our First Amendment if it is not there to protect those that say disgusting things? Let me say it again. What good is the First Amendment if it is not there to protect people that we all find disgusting or that we believe hold disturbing views? The First Amendment is useless if it is only used to defend the prevailing view. It is there to make sure that dissenting views are allowed to be heard as well. Even if they're disgusting, even if we hate them, even if it just makes us sick to our stomachs, we still must defend the right of the individual to say them. And this legislation, Tim can say that it doesn't really do anything. But I'm looking at it, and it does a few things. It disallows, ultimately, it disallows criticism of the state of Israel. It makes it illegal to deny the Holocaust. Now, that's a tricky one, but walk with me here. Understand something. I'm not defending any of these viewpoints. I'm not defending any one of these people. But if we live in a country that we can make it illegal to think certain things and say those certain things out loud, it may not be you today or tomorrow or next week, but eventually they'll come for you too. Eventually you will say something the government doesn't like. And if you give the government that level of power, I promise you they'll use it. Let us not allow the emotions of the moment to cloud our vision and our clarity about what we are as a nation. Let us not allow the emotions of the moment to cloud our vision about what it is to be an American. 21 after the hour on Super Talk.
All right, drivers in Williamson County, Thompson Station to be precise, Carter's Creek Pike between Dodd Lane and Sparkman Road is still shut down due to that overturned tractor-trailer spilling all of its fuel. President Biden asked about sending the National Guard in to handle campus protests, and Murfreesboro police putting out a warning about a new scam. Midday Money News just ahead at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, if they spelled Murfreesboro a little bit differently, I would move there and increase property values automatically. But I will not because they spell it wrong. One way or the other. Ken Weaver, I just realized something. I just realized what Belle Kay's spirit animal is.
What's that?
I know most people would think cat or
Cobra.
Even cobra. No. Your spirit animal is the cicada.
Why?
You sleep in the dark for 17 years and have sex once in your life.
I wish it was that much.
I mean, they spend years asleep. They come out, take off their clothes, essentially.
Essentially, yes.
And then and get busy with some girly cicadas, and then they die.
That doesn't sound like a bad life.
Actually, now that I think about it, cicadas might be my spirit animal, too. Why are people, you know what people are doing now in the members do trade? Ken Weaver didn't hear this, but yesterday we had Cameron Smith on the show, and Cameron was threatening to eat cicadas. There are apparently cicada recipes going around.
He said they taste like soft shell crab if you cook them right.
Whatever, like he knows. So I now have listeners sending me photos of cicadas that have just come out of their shells. You got to catch them right as they get out of the shells where they're nice and white with the red eyes.
Yeah.
And then
those are the ones with lasers.
Apparently, those are good eating.
Yeah, you got to look out for them.
And I'll just mix them up. I did get a recipe for cicada dip. Would you try any cicada dip, Ken Weaver?
No.
Okay, that's an answer.
And I'll eat anything. But I'm
not eating bugs.
I remember growing up in Texas, man. There were people that they'd eat roasted ants.
What?
Yeah, chocolate covered ants.
See, that's just people that like chocolate enough that they're willing to eat some ants to get it.
I mean, you can walk
exactly what that
you
is.
can walk around in the grocery store there in East Texas and find cow tongue.
You can find that here.
I've never seen it here.
I've told the story in the past about my grandpa. We went through the exotic food day. I mean, we were always hunters when I was a kid, deer hunting, duck hunting, bird hunting, dove hunting. And we went through this phase where, we had turtle stew, which was really good.
Yeah.
My grandpa made rattlesnake, which is a delicate preparation process, but it was okay. Tasted like chicken.
Yeah.
We had goat. Don't come at me, Christy Nome. I eat goat.
Goat's good.
Goat is good. Barbecue goat with the yellow sauce.
Cooked in a pit.
So good.
You ever had alligator?
I've had alligator.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. I drew the line. So we did frog gigging. We ate frog. I drew the line at chitlins.
Yeah,
I was a 14-year-old kid, and it was a big deal for me to stand up to my grandpa. I said, Pa, I'm not doing it. Yeah. And Pa said, boy, you're going to miss out some good eating. I hadn't had chitlins in forever. And he got them, and he fried them outside in his little outside kitchen.
Yeah.
And, he was going to have a big time with his chitlins. And the rest of us were eating fried fish.
Yeah.
And my grandpa, I hadn't had these since I was a boy. Whoa, I can't wait. And he popped a couple of them in his mouth. And his expression changed. And we were afraid. Nobody said a word to him. Nobody said a word. But you know what Pa didn't do?
Swallow it?
No, he didn't go back for more.
No, sir.
He said, pass me that fish over there.
Hey, I'll tell you something about those roasted ants. Now, I never tried any, but from what I understand, and it makes sense, you stick the ants, in an oven, and they kind of crisp up. With the chocolate on them, and it's just kind of like little crispy, little chocolate Krispies.
That's just...
But I never tried it, and I don't think I ever would.
I mean, I'd do most anything once, I guess.
East Texas was it was real close to Louisiana.
Renee wants to know which of the three of us would try Rocky Mountain oysters. I'm out.
Oh, I'd do that.
There's your answer.
Absolutely.
That's weird.
They're probably good.
Well, maybe. Heck, ants might be pretty good too.
I'm not doing ants.
Bugs, I'm out.
At least with oysters, it's real meat.
I mean, pretty much universally, if we have to resort to eating insects I'm out. Yeah. I'm out of society at that point. I'm leaving. I'm just gone.
Hey, before we go to break, I've got a historical birthday I want you to try to guess.
All right.
Born in 1892.
Wait, hold on. Okay.
Died when he was 26.
Okay. Wait. That's 1918. Okay. Something like that. Sergeant York.
No.
Okay, damn it. Okay, go.
Gomer Pyle.
Gomer Pyle.
Snoopy.
Snoopy?
Snoopy.
That would be Charles Schultz, but I don't think Charles Schultz died when he was 28.
Is the name Manfred von Richthofen.
The Red Baron.
The Red Baron was born on this day in 1892. Died when he was 26 and had a record of 80 aerial victories in his 26 years.
Brother Bell.
But, I mean, how good could he have been when he got beaten by a dog?
Well, you got to go down at some point. He could have been having an off day.
I mean, Snoopy whooped the Red Baron, doesn't even have opposable thumbs.
Well, Snoopy does, but he's a mutant.
His co-pilot was Woodstock.
You know what, Bell, that trivia fact was good enough that Ken Weaver doesn't get to say on the dot this time around. It's 11:31. It is 11:31 on the dot on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's actually 11:31:45. And I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. President Biden says he does not think the National Guard should intervene in the Gaza war protests on college campuses. Asked if the demonstrations, some of which have turned violent, have forced him to reconsider his Mideast policies, the president said simply no. He also condemned hate speech and violence of any kind.
Whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. It's simply wrong.
Meanwhile, police still clearing out any remnants of the pro-Hamas Palestinian encampment at UCLA this morning. Here in Middle Tennessee, the Murfreesboro Police Department alerting the public to a sophisticated scam targeting the elderly. One is from someone impersonating McAfee services. Another one by scammers posing as Microsoft and Federal Trade Association employees. A 75-year-old was deceived into wiring a total of $138,000. A 73-year-old victim deceived into setting up a new bank account and transferring $32,000 into it. Midday Money News, stocks are up at least 0.25%.
After several tough days, investors are making some headway. Going into the midday, the Dow Jones was 136 points higher and back above 38,000. The S&P was up 0.3%. The NASDAQ higher by 0.7.
That's Jim Ryan and the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I've enjoyed my time in the morning. Ken Weaver behind the glass in the newsroom. Bell K behind the glass in the control area, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. Thank you for being there as well. I am subbing in for Chris Hand. Chris Hand is scheduled to sub in for me from noon until 3. We did a little flippy flop. Chris had a school play to attend earlier today, and I can't wait to hear all about it. I encourage you, do you guys ever watch, I have caught up now with Kelsey Grammer's Historic Battles for America. Never seen it? Never watched it?
To be honest with you, I hadn't even heard of it till just now.
Oh, man.
What's it on?
It's so good. I think it's on Fox. I see it on Fox Business. I think it might be a part of the, and someone on the membersnutrition.com super text line, correct me as I am wrong. I'm certain that I will be wrong on some of this, but I think it was originally created for Fox Nation, and I think I see it on Fox Business. I forget where I caught it last night.
Well, I quit watching Fox Business when they let Brian Wilson leave, so I don't care. Bye.
Who?
Brian
the Beach Boys?
Yes. See, people say you don't pay attention.
That's why I always call him the one and only Brian Wilson, because when I first told people I was coming to Nashville, Tennessee, and they said, "Oh, really? What radio station?" Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And invariably they would say something along the lines of, "Oh, Phil Valentine." And I said, "Yeah, Phil, we sad that we lost Phil." And who else is there over there? Oh, Brian Wilson. And
the Beach Boys?
Yes, and it was so... Some did not. Some got it. Some got the connection between Fox News and Brian and whatnot. But
that's dogged his life since the 60s.
No, I did an interview with a guy in Little Rock, Arkansas that I'd never spoken with in my life. And he said, "Matt Guitar Murphy." I get that a lot. I don't know. Matt Guitar Murphy, Blues Brothers.
Oh, got it now.
Yeah. So the reason I mention this is I wrote something down as I was watching the show. It's called Kelsey Grammer's Historic Battles for America. And the ones that I've seen several on the American Revolution, and I've seen one on the Alamo. And obviously Kelsey Grammer has this incredible voice. And his bona fides, his conservative bona fides are well established, and the man truly loves the United States of America, and I think that matters. But his narration, and they show him on camera from time to time, and then it's just a well-done series of documentaries.
Is it just for those two, or they're...
No, they do battles, so it's the Battle of Bunker Hill. For the American Revolution, I saw the Battle of Bunker Hill, I saw the Battle of Brooklyn, and I saw the Battle of Yorktown, and then I saw the Alamo. Those are the four that I've seen. And I think there are several seasons, and I've not seen all of the seasons. But I was watching, most Americans, you all are different. You're the smartest listening audience on planet Earth. 4292 confirms that it is on Fox Business, and it is a great show. And it's also on Fox Nation, as Ray has pointed out. I watched for the second time the Battle of Bunker Hill, which was actually the first, and as Kelsey Grammer put it, the first battle of the American Revolution would also be the first piece of information from the new states, because the Battle of Bunker Hill did not happen on Bunker Hill. It happened on Breeds Hill. But when the first reports about the skirmish made the newspapers, they mistakenly referred to it as Bunker Hill instead of Breeds Hill, which was a hill near Bunker Hill. And so it became the Battle of Bunker Hill, and that's the way we know it, but it actually happened on Breeds Hill. But sadly, most Americans, all of us know about George Washington. Do we know about Joseph Warren?
Don't recognize the name at all.
Joseph Warren was probably as influential at the time of his death as George Washington, and it was expected that Joseph Warren would become as important to the American cause and the American Revolution as George Washington. Joseph Warren, and this is just fresh on my mind, and watching this show last night, I wondered, and I don't mean to get too soppy or sentimental or reflective here, but it's on my heart. I struggle with whether or not the culture that we see in America today will permit our country to continue to exist as it was formed.
I think it's arguable that it doesn't already.
Well, I mean, there have been so many changes, but some of the basic fundamental building blocks that, Ronald Reagan said it in his Pointe du Hoc speech on the shores of France in 1984. He looked at the boys of Pointe du Hoc. I call it Hoc. Some people say Ho, but. And we play this speech every June 6th. It's incredibly compelling. But he looked at men and asked, why did you do it? Why did you take on a mission? Why were you willing to do something that you knew was going to result in the death of more than half of you? And then he answered his own rhetorical question by saying, because some things are worth dying for. Freedom is worth dying for. The men who were at Bunker Hill or Breed's Hill during the American Revolution believed that. They understood that. And Joseph Warren was commissioned before arriving at Bunker/Breed Hill. He was commissioned into the Continental Army at a rank of Major General in the Second Continental Congress. And 3 days after his commission, he arrived in Charlestown, Massachusetts, and the Battle of Bunker Hill had just begun. And he made his way to where the Patriots were forming, and they had taken the hill and they had dug out a redoubt overnight. And he met General Putnam, and Warren asked General Putnam where the heaviest fighting would be. And Putnam told him. He pointed to Breed's Hill, and Warren immediately volunteered to go there. And Putnam told him, no, you're a major general. Well, he had not gotten his official orders, and so he said, no, I want to fight as a private on the front lines. A major general would not be on the front lines. A major general is too important to be on the front lines.
So wait a minute, why would he fight as a private then?
He volunteered to join the militia in the rank of private against the wishes of Putnam, who requested that he serve as a commander instead of as a frontline soldier. Warren declined their request, saying, you two have, Putnam and I think the other guy's name was Prescott, you two have more military experience. You command from the rear. I'm going to the front. It was reported that Warren stated, as the waves of British soldiers came up the hill, these fellows say we won't fight. By heaven, I hope that today I shall die up to my knees in their blood. And he did. He died during the third wave and became a hero as a result of his death. He volunteered to go to a place that he did not need to be. Arguably could have better served his country for longer had he chosen to do it a different way. But in the end of it all, it was one of the British generals. The Brits actually took the hill eventually, but they suffered enormous casualties in doing so. I think the Patriots lost almost 500 men. The British lost over 1,000. So it was technically, the American Revolution was all about losing the battles and winning the war. If you know anything about the American Revolution, America lost most of the battles. But we were such a pain in the ass for the British for so long. And General George Washington was so good at being deceptive about where we were and what we were doing, and it was just infuriating to the Brits. They eventually just gave up. Well, and Yorktown helped, but...
And they had such long supply lines, and just, it's like, after a while, it's just like, okay, enough of them.
Yeah, just, you know what? Forget it. It's not worth it. But it was said the British general that was in charge of the Brits that were trying to take Breeds Hill / Bunker Hill, he said that Joseph Warren was worth, what was the quote? That he alone was worth 500 of mine. There was a time where we valued the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. And I know that every generation fears that the next generation has lost those values. One of the reasons that I look to the UNC kids, I call them kids, that's what they are to me, young men with such respect, is that we must protect and breed the next generation of patriots. We must protect and breed the next generation of patriots. Otherwise, we'll lose the spirit that Joseph Warren was fighting for. Because I saw it last night, it was kind of on my heart to relate to. If you've not seen it, watch some of these battles that made him. I mean, it's incredible. The Alamo is a pretty good one, too, because that was a losing effort. And there were a lot of reasons for that, but just a great series. Kelsey Grammer's The Battles, Historic Battles for America on Fox Business. It's 49 after the hour. We'll check in with the one and only Chris Head coming up next on Super Talk. It is 11:54, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand, and I am joined in studio by the one and only Matt Murphy. Wait a minute, that's your line.
No, that's backwards.
That's what's up, brother?
What?
It's weird, isn't it?
This feels off.
I know. I was doing the Gang of Four Amigos this morning, and I was trying to do my best Chris Hand.
I listened to the Gang of Four Amigos.
Is that every day?
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't realize how quickly it would descend into arrow length jokes.
I mean, but I mean, I actually have a newfound respect for how much you hold back because the softballs that are up in the air during that segment.
You could just be hitting dingers all day.
I know. And I have to remind myself that maybe there are children in the car. Maybe there are Chris Hand's children in the car. How was the show?
It was awesome. My two kids, I was down in Woodbury. They are at the Cannon County Arts Center, I think is how you call it.
Sure.
But, they're doing Finding Nemo Jr., and today was their first show, so I got to surprise them because you were so gracious to switch spots with me. So they were very excited, and they said, tell Uncle Murph we said thanks.
Well, thank you, kids. It's my pleasure. Are you going to do a full-throated critical review of the presentation today?
And I won't hold back. They're my kids, and I love them, and I feel like I owe them the honesty.
Sure.
Didn't feel like I was in the ocean. No, I'm just kidding. The kids did awesome. The kids were so good. They were so good. I was holding back tears, proud dad moments, and
hold on a second. Right before we came on the air, you said it a little differently. It was funny. I had said, I love my kids, and there's tears, and but I didn't really feel like I was in the ocean. And the way, the one turtle character, he wasn't into it. And, he's waving at his mom. Like, come on, kid, you're a turtle.
Focus.
Let's go.
Focus.
Hey, so.
No, they did awesome.
I'm a little flummoxed. This is a story I haven't gotten to. I'm curious.
Flummoxed?
I'm flummoxed about where I am on this story. This is not normal.
This is the first time I've seen you flummoxed.
So I'm anti-lab meat.
Yeah.
Okay?
Me too.
Anti-lab meat.
Yeah.
But I'm also anti-big government.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would like for lab meat to go away for a lack of people buying lab meat.
Well, aren't sales down on plant-based meat?
Well, our good buddy Ron DeSantis
friend of the show.
Yeah, my show. Not your show. You can say that for another 3 minutes. He signed legislation yesterday to ban lab-grown meat in Florida.
Yeah.
And at first glance, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. Good. We don't need lab-grown meat. But then I'm like, well, shouldn't the consumers be deciding that instead of the government? Yeah. I'm legit flummoxed as to where I'm at on this.
Yeah, I guess in a perfect world, that would be the case.
Here's the problem, though. I don't think they're telling us. That's the problem. I don't think they will tell us if they have the ability to not tell us that this crap is grown in a lab. You know what I mean?
They won't. They have the ability and they won't tell us. Isn't that a lot of things in government?
Yeah, no question about that, man. Well, I mean, it's a matter of where government should stop and allow the American people to take over and do what we will. I mean, I think this vote yesterday on anti-Semitism is one of those examples.
How shocked were you that Burchett voted for that?
It bothered me.
It threw you off a bit. I could tell when I was listening on the way in, and it threw me off a bit too. I figured he would be one of the guys to say, yeah, hard pass.
And here's the thing, he knows because he immediately, and I'm not going to yell at him. I like Tim, and if that's what we disagree on, so be it. But he immediately began telling me why it's no big deal that I voted for it because it really won't do anything and it really is okay and it's really just language and I understand why you're where you are on it. And then why did you vote for it?
Well, and I'm reading on it. It's like you essentially made it illegal to read the New Testament out loud. You know what I mean? And for me, I'm like, I get where Christians are at with Israel, but you should be able to criticize a foreign government.
Yeah.
Like just on its face, it's a foreign government.
Well, and as disgusting as it may seem, and this is the example that I go to, that if you want to deny the Holocaust happened, I feel like most people are going to ridicule you and excoriate you and wag their finger at you and cast you aside as you deserve. but that should not cause you to go to jail.
No, and European countries do this.
I know.
It's illegal to deny the Holocaust in quite a few European countries, but it's like you can't outlaw dumb.
Right. Or you shouldn't. Okay, speaking of dumb, this is going to sound weird.
All right.
Hey, Chris, what's coming up on the Matt Murphy Show today?
Well, I'm embracing the Murphy lifestyle. I don't know. We're gonna roll with it.
Let's see.
No, I got audio from 2 Trump rallies yesterday. I have a shocking statement from Al Sharpton and Kevin O'Leary talking about the difference between this protest and past protests.
Chris Hand coming up on the Matt Murphy Show. We'll be back tomorrow high noon. Until then, so long.